Phil Ivey legally found a way to win millions from some of the world's biggest casinos, doing what all gamblers aspire to do, beat the house. But once he won, the casinos tried to get all of their money back. Phil Ivey is one of the greatest poker players in the world. 10 World Series of Poker bracelets, 1 Poker World Tour title, and over $38 million of earnings from poker tournaments alone. He's already in the Poker Hall of Fame, and many consider him to be the GOAT on the felt. He's even compared to Jordan or Kobe for his serious demeanor and intense pursuit of winning. However, poker is a game of skill, where you're trying to outthink your opponent on many levels, with a metagame involved at the highest level among some of the best players in the world. So Phil wasn't going to take the house down in a game of skill like poker, but instead a game of luck, Baccarat, by changing his chances of winning. Baccarat is similar to the more widely known game Blackjack. There's some slight variation. Instead of trying to get to 21, you're trying to get as close as possible to 9. The cards hold different values than they do in Blackjack, and there are a few more slight differences, but they do not really matter for the point of this story. The main takeaway, it's a game that boils down to luck, where the casino holds a slight edge. All these giant buildings in Vegas weren't put up by giving away money, but the edge is very slight in this game. It's only 1 to 2% for the house. This means it's essentially a coin flip, but over time, they are going to get their cut. Unless you find some sort of system to flip the edge to your side. Or in Phil Ivey's case, you find a person who could flip the edge to your side. Cheng Yin Sun, or much easier for me to pronounce, goes by Kelly in the gambling world. She's also known as the Baccarat Machine. And before we get how Kelly connects to Phil, we need to talk about her rise in the gambling world. She started at just 15 years old, using a fake ID to play the Chinese version of poker, and would even go on gambling cruises, playing any sort of game possible. She just loved the thrill. And the problem with that is if you love the thrill of gambling and that's what you're chasing, you probably aren't going to be too profitable. And that's what was happening to Kelly, losing money and heading down the wrong path. That was until she happened to be playing slots on a machine next to Stephen Black, a professional gambler who has a storied history for finding the edge against the house. He has an impeccable sharp memory and vision that led him to create his own luck time after time in various games. Stephen took Kelly under his wing. She would receive about $20 an hour for helping him, not nearly as much as he was making, but she was also learning how to beat the house, and that was much more important for Kelly. Kelly and Stephen were taking the casinos for big money, and Kelly would take out a loan for one of her friends that was promised to be paid back. Kelly left the casino thinking nothing of it, and a few months later, it came back to bite her. She would face legal troubles and even spend some time in jail. During this time, her and Stephen stopped working together, but Kelly discovered something new, and she was determined to work hard at it and become the best and get back at the casinos. What she discovered was edge sorting. When the cards are cut, there are imperfections on the long side, making it possible to distinguish one card from another. These imperfections are so small and almost indistinguishable, but with lots of practice, it can be done, and for some like Kelly, they could even master it. She started using this money and taking money from casinos. However, her bankroll wasn't entirely huge. She bumped back into Stephen and she wanted to take the house for everything, but she needed his friend Phil Ivey, and not for his money. Sure, Phil Ivey's massive bankroll would help them bring in more money, but that wasn't the most important quality Phil brought to the team. As a high roller and a well-known one, Phil had certain privileges that are impossible to obtain for the average gambler. Casinos knew he had money, they knew he had fame, and they were willing to accommodate Phil to try and take that money. This could mean comping him for hotel rooms, flights to the casino, rides from the airport, free food, free drinks. But that's not what Kelly needed. They needed some special circumstances to play the game, and they were going to ask for them, and they knew the casinos would agree because it was Phil Ivey. There were 4 requirements. The first, the dealer must speak in Kelly's native language. There was 2 reasons for this. The first, she wanted to communicate with the dealer, but there was a much deeper reason. It made her seem superstitious in a way, making the next requirements not raise any red flags. The second, the dealer needed to use an automatic shuffler so the cards would not rotate, making it possible to edge sort, because the cards would stay the same way the entire game. Number 3, The deck would not change at any point. It was simple. Kelly did not want to have to learn a completely new deck midway through sorting. In number 4, instead of Baccarat, they wanted to play mini Baccarat. The big difference between the two is that mini Baccarat, the dealer is the only one to touch the cards. They thought casinos would be less likely to accuse them of cheating if they weren't even touching the cards. They hit the road and started executing their plan, and things were going great. They played all over: Montreal, Singapore, Monte Carlo, and each time they were leaving with cash. They decided to hit the Borgata in Atlantic City, and everything started to hit the fan. In 4 trips, they won $9.6 million, and Phil reinvested those winnings to play some craps, which brought the total to over $10 million from just one casino. Every time they went, they were getting paid out big. They started to feel invincible, but they still wanted more. They needed to mix things up and go to a new casino. Crockford's in London was next. This time it did not take more than just one trip. In 24 hours, they were up $12 million. That's when the casino decided no more and changed the rules. They switched out the deck. Phil and Kelly looked at each other and they had the same idea. If they aren't letting us play by our rules, no more playing. They got up from the table. They would no longer play there. They went to cash out and everything went as it had before. They took Phil's bank information and the pair expected a $12 million wire to hit in the next coming days. However, it didn't come through, and it wasn't a bank issue. Crockford's decided they were not going to pay Phil, and they accused him of cheating. Phil decided to do what all good poker players do and call their bluff, taking them to court, but it would take more than just some letters from his lawyers to get them to cave in. This was a legal battle, and other casinos would get involved. The Borgata decided to take Phil to court to get their money back that they already had paid him, accusing him and Kelly of cheating. Both cases were ongoing at the same time in different countries. As for the Crockford's case, Phil lost at first, but he appealed, going all the way to England's Supreme Court, where he lost again, never collecting $1 of the $12 million he and Kelly won. The Borgata case was a lot more difficult. At first, they went after everything, trying to charge him with RICO and fraud that could have tripled his bill, causing him to owe them more money than he even won. A ridiculous attempt, which the judge threw out. What they did was not fraud, but the judge did rule that their edge sorting scheme amounted to a violation of New Jersey's Casino Control Act. So Borgata would be owed its money back. The problem? Phil knew that was a possibility, and he didn't have any money. All his winnings and everything else were moved to overseas accounts that they could not access. They kept fighting and pushing for it, and it seemed like they were never going to get him. But Phil still had to play poker, and whenever he would win a tournament, his winnings were immediately seized by Borgata. It seemed like this was never going to end, and they were going to try and get their money one way or another. They also would attempt to go after Gemico, the company who made the cards. A judge decided that, yeah, they could collect from the company about $27, the cost of the cards they had purchased. So that was thrown out before they would put more money into lawyer fees to only get $27 back. They were not done going after Phil though. However, they eventually found some sort of settlement. He didn't want to have to pay them after every poker tournament he won for the rest of his life, and they just wanted some of their money back. It is unknown what they settled for, but the case was closed. So Phil's legal troubles are now done, and he did not get $20 million of his winnings. But that's still the story of how one man almost took down Vegas with some help from the Baccarat machine.